Hi, I'm Peyton Schaeffer. For my final project, I decided to focus on the Ottoman Empire, specifically the early forms of typography in the Ottoman Empire. I'm a graphic design major and I'm currently finishing my first typography course, which overlaps perfectly with this project. I was immediately drawn to the early typographic techniques utilized throughout the empire. Before I began the research for this project, I knew that the Ottoman Empire was notorious for its usage of calligraphy to adorn its architectural spaces and artworks. Arabic calligraphy is the artistic practice of handwritten script. In Arabic, the practice is known as khat, which is derived from the word meaning design or construction. In the empire, calligraphy was an art form passed down from teacher to student. Before an artist could begin independent calligraphy work, they followed a practice called taqlid, in which they spent a great amount of time copying their master's work. Think of it as a lot of tracing. This is a practice that is still used today. I've had 2 full projects in my typography course that were simply just tracing typefaces. The origins of calligraphy stem from the early days of Islam. Muslims searched for an elegant way to adorn the Quran. They discovered that Arabic letters are so curvilinear that they are able to extend and link together to create a cursive look, along with some tweaking of the letter forms. Calligraphy soon became an act of religious significance. As the tradition went on, the text became gilded, much like the gilded manuscripts we've looked at in Europe, giving it a new level of religious importance. Besides the decoration of the Quran and other works deserving of calligraphy, calligraphy is also used to adorn architectural spaces, mostly religious spaces like mosques. Islam is a religion where pictures are not used to describe religious events. That's a lot more relevant to religions like Christianity. So instead, geometric patterns and calligraphic scripts are used. For example, in the Sophia Hagia, which was converted into a mosque, there are large medallions with Arabic inscriptions alluding to Allah, Muhammad, and the first 4 caliphs. The most stunning attribute, in my opinion, is how the typography used in the spaces creates a beautiful composition. The letter forms are set to create stunning geometric patterns while still maintaining a coherent legibility. Many of the typefaces are more modern or elaborate, stem from the Kufic script typeface. The typeface had long vertical lines and angular shapes. As a typographic practice continued in the empire, the letter forms of the scripts became a lot more curvilinear and elaborate, with long ascenders and descending line, like the Toulouse script. I was extremely inspired before beginning my process, so I kind of just dove in. I approached this project in the same way I would for a studio class. I began with finding inspiration. I looked at sources like the Met to get a sense of style and techniques used during the empire. I decided to utilize my typography class knowledge and create a type specimen poster to highlight a typeface similar to an Arabic calligraphic script that would have been used for adornment like Toulouse, and also pull in some modernity. I also did research on color schemes that would be appropriate for the style. I pulled 8 based on fine art that best fit. There's a lot of earth tones, and I pulled a yellow color to act as a gold. I began by creating an 11 by 17 tabloid file on Adobe Illustrator, so that if I ever chose to print it out, it would be an accurate poster size. I laid out on the side inspiration images and the calligraphic typefaces I was planning to use to serve as the Arabic typeface. I started on the composition by creating an appropriate colored background and built up layers by creating borders around the composition. I thought that the borders could be a play off of fine art and important legal or religious documents that would have been adorned with calligraphy, which would solidify its importance. From there, I built up geometric patterns that I wanted my type to follow. I created various shapes and flows in the composition so that the style would reflect the geometric patterns used in the mosques. I wanted to place a heavy emphasis on the composition as a whole. I picked the typeface Salamat from the Adobe Typekit because it has very curvy and long ascending and descending lines on the letters like the S and J, which is the perfect English dupe for Talith. I repeated the typeface name Salamat and created a diamond or chevron pattern with the type, seeing as much of the Ottoman typographic compositions rely on flow and an implied line built in by type. I added geometric shapes to break up some of the text. I thought it would also be clever to create a glyph composition out of some of the intricate letters. I stacked lowercase g's and j's to create a decoration within the design, similar to some of the examples I had seen in my research and ideation. After I had the general sense of the composition, I started to finalize the colors of the type and other elements. I didn't want to copy the architectural examples I showed, so I pulled from my color palette, created based off of fine art in the Ottoman Empire. I finished the poster off with a large centerpiece of the typeface's name, similar to a modern type specimen poster and how it would function. I lightened the color a bit to make it look gold like the gilded scriptures of the Quran. I'm actually really proud of the way that my project turned out. It took me a lot longer than expected with a lot of trial and error just because I'm not used to this style. It's something completely new to me. But it really does look inspired by the early forms of typography in the Ottoman Empire, while also having a sense of modernity. It's such a unique type specimen poster, and I'm sure it would look great printed as well. I hope that you learned something interesting about typography in the Ottoman Empire, or just typography itself. It's such a unique art that I feel like is super underrated, especially in history classes sometimes. Thank you.